Crydon, 7 had once been a world of peace. Its skies shimmered with soft blue light, and its lands were filled with tall, crystal-topped towers that hummed with gentle energy. The Thalorians, the planet's native species, were a people of knowledge, harmony, and art. They believed that understanding was stronger than war, and for thousands of years, they had lived without conflict. But that belief had become their greatest weakness. Now, the skies were black. The towers had crumbled into broken shards. Fire fell from above. The Varnock Dominion, a brutal war empire from the outer stars, had arrived with force and fury. Led by the ruthless High Warlord Threxelmar, their invasion was swift and merciless. No warnings. No demands. No negotiations. Only death. Their ships, dark, jagged, like predators, filled the upper atmosphere. Red plasma fire lit up the sky. The Thalorian defense grid had been wiped out in the first wave. Cities fell one by one. Entire regions were scorched to dust. In the capital city, Valeriath, thousands gathered in the central sanctuary. The High Scholar of Crydon, 7, an elderly Thalorian with pale skin and deep-set silver eyes, stood beneath the dome and addressed his people. His voice trembled with grief, but not fear. "We did not build weapons because we believed no one should need them," he said softly. "And now we are left to watch our dreams burn. But know this, peace is never wasted. Even if we die in silence, we die without hatred." Some wept. Others simply held hands. There were no screams, no anger. Just sadness, deep and final. Above them, in orbit, the last few Galactic Coalition ships tried to hold the line. Small cruisers, outmatched and outgunned, made one last attempt to protect the planet. Their commanders pleaded through the comm channels for help. "This is Coalition Vessel Starseer, Crydon system. If anyone hears this, we are overwhelmed. Requesting immediate aid. Any Terran presence in range, we beg you, respond." Silence. On the Varnock command ship, the Drefong, High Warlord Threxelmar watched the surface through a wide observation window. The warlord was tall, armored in black steel, with a scar that ran from his left brow to his chin. He grinned at the devastation below. "Pathetic," he growled. "They beg for help like children calling for ghosts. The Terrans won't come. They never do. They hide in their corner of the stars, pretending to be above war." A Varnock officer stepped beside him. "Should we prepare ground forces for final sweep?" Threxel nodded. "Let them see our banners before the end." On the surface, near the ruined eastern plains, a coalition outpost made its final stand. A squad of mixed-species soldiers, human, Saraxi, and Thalorian, fired old rifles at incoming drones. Their leader, Captain Doran, shouted over the noise. "We can't hold them. Get the civilians into the tunnel. Go now." A Varnock bomber screamed overhead. The blast threw Doran against a wall. Dust and ash filled the air. Someone dragged him to his feet. Then, it happened. The sky, already filled with smoke, shimmered. A low hum grew louder, deeper. At first, people thought it was another Varnock ship arriving. But then the clouds split open like paper, and space itself seemed to tear. A rift formed, massive and glowing, like a wound in the stars. Out of the rift came shapes, black and silver hulls, larger than any the Coalition had seen. Smooth, sharp, moving in perfect silence. There was no engine roar, no dramatic light. Just presence. One after another, humanity's Terran warships emerged. The Terran Armada had arrived. In orbit, Coalition pilots blinked in disbelief as dozens, no, hundreds, of ships filled the void around them. The flagship, HTS Deliverance, stood at the front. Over 3 kilometers long, it carried enough firepower to end entire fleets. On the bridge of the Drefong, Threxel froze. He stared at the sensors. His officers exchanged nervous looks. "What?" one of them whispered. Threxel's grin faded. Back on Crydon, 7, the remaining Thalorian survivors looked up. For a moment, they didn't understand what they were seeing. Then a young girl pointed and said, "They came." At the Coalition outpost, Captain Doran wiped blood from his lip and looked up, squinting at the sky. A voice crackled through the battered comms. "This is Commander Lyravas of the Terran Armed Fleet. To Varnock forces, you are in violation of galactic law. Stand down immediately." No one spoke. No one moved. The tide had turned, but the cost was already beyond measure. Commander Lyravas stood at the center of the HTS Deliverance, the largest warship in the Terran fleet. The command deck was quiet. No one spoke unless she gave permission. Her officers sat at their stations, eyes locked on the data streams flowing across their displays. Through the main viewport, the planet Crydon, 7 filled the screen. Fires still burned in its atmosphere. Craters glowed orange. The outlines of destroyed cities could be seen even from orbit. Lyra's hands were folded behind her back. Her eyes, sharp and calm, did not blink as she studied the damage. "Report," she said. Her communications officer, Lieutenant Kor, answered without looking up. "Coalition ships in low orbit have ceased fire. They're signaling surrender. Varnock forces remain active. No response to her hail. Civilian population? Severely reduced, Commander. Estimated casualties, over 4 billion. The number hit the bridge like a gust of wind. A few crew members lowered their heads. Lyra remained still. "How long ago did the first distress signal reach us?" she asked. Kor hesitated. 6 days ago, Commander. Delays due to diplomatic review, risk assessment, and Senate debate. Lyra closed her eyes for a moment. Not long, but enough for her crew to understand the weight she carried. She had argued to intervene immediately. She had begged the Terran Council to act. But the Council wanted to wait, to gather more information, to avoid drawing attention. And in those 6 days, an entire world had been shattered. "Prepare shuttle teams," she said quietly. "I'm going to the surface." The shuttle pierced through Crydon 7's smoky atmosphere, escorted by 2 Terran fighters. Below, the landscape was a mix of blackened earth, collapsed cities, and fractured roads. Nothing moved. No resistance. No life, at least not out in the open. Lyra's boots touched the ground at what had once been a cultural center in Valeriath, the capital. Her team spread out, medics, technicians, security personnel. A coalition officer approached her, limping and covered in ash. "Commander Voss," he said, trying to stand straight. "Captain Doran. I didn't think you'd come. We should have been here days ago," Lyra replied. Doran said nothing. He simply nodded and gestured to the ruins. "This is what's left," he said. "They bombed the hospitals first, then the communication towers. Left nothing that could be used to call for help again." Lyra walked through the broken streets. Her footsteps echoed in the silence. She saw small bodies under sheets, crushed buildings, a playground half melted from orbital fire. She paused in front of a mural, once bright with Thalorian art, now charred and cracked. She turned to one of the surviving Thalorian elders, who had come out to meet her. He was thin, hollow-eyed, his long fingers trembling as he leaned on a broken staff. "We believed no one would come," the elder said. "But we still called. We still hoped." Lyra looked at him. She had no words of comfort, no excuse that could erase what had happened. "You are not forgotten," she said finally. "And you will not be alone again." Back aboard the Deliverance, the mood had changed. The crew had seen the images. They had walked the ruins. No one questioned what needed to be done. Lyra stood in the strategy chamber with her senior officers. A 3D projection of the Varnock fleet hovered in the air above them, strong, but now outnumbered. "We're receiving reports that Threxel has fortified his ships around the Crydon defense ring," said Commander Rourke, her second in command. "He expects us to attack conventionally. He thinks we'll waste time, ship by ship," said Tactical Officer Lane. "Draw it out. Make him feel powerful." Lyra nodded. "He's used to fear. That's why he keeps winning." Rourke's fists clenched. "Commander, we shouldn't wait any longer. Let us strike. They massacred civilians. They executed prisoners. We cannot show mercy to monsters." Lyra turned to him. Her voice was steady, cold. "This isn't about mercy. This is about justice. If we act out of vengeance, we become no better than them." The room went silent. "But we will act," she continued. "We are not diplomats today. We are the line between what was lost and what must never happen again." She turned to the comms officer. "Send a message to the Varnock fleet," she ordered. "Give them one chance to surrender." "And if they refuse?" Rourke asked. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Then we remind them why the galaxy fears our silence." The message was transmitted on all known frequencies. "To High Warlord Threxelmar and the Varnock Dominion. This is Commander Lyra Voss of the Terran Armada. You are responsible for the genocide of over 4 billion civilians. You are hereby ordered to surrender your fleet and cease all hostilities. You have 10 minutes to comply." The reply came much sooner. Threxel's face appeared on the central screen. He was sneering. "You Terrans come with your hollow words. You think one fleet changes the outcome? You are late, Voss. The world is already dead. You can't undo what's done." "We're not here to undo it," Lyra said calmly. "We're here to end it." Threxel laughed, then cut the feed. Lyra turned to her officers. "Prepare the fleet," she said. "We gave them their chance." As the Terran Armada aligned into attack formation, the crew felt the shift. Not of position, but of purpose. They were not fighting a battle. They were delivering a verdict. The Terran armada moved into high orbit, silent and unshaken. Thousands of ships, large and small, formed a massive arc above Krydon. 7. The formation was perfect, their weapons powered but not yet active. The war room aboard the HTS Deliverance was still, filled only with the soft hum of energy flowing through the ship's core systems. Commander Lyra Voss stood with her arms crossed behind her back, staring at the floating projection of the Varnock Dominion fleet. Their ships were scattered but ready, forming a defensive ring around the broken remains of Krydon 7's orbital platforms. Varnock cruisers bristled with weapons. Their destroyers floated like armored beasts waiting to strike. But they were loud, messy, chaotic. The Terran armada was not. Status? Lyra asked. Lieutenant Cole replied, enemy forces are fully aware of our position. No response to surrender order. Energy spikes detected on multiple Varnock vessels. Looks like they're preparing for an attack. Any civilian signals still coming from the surface? Lyra asked quietly. Only a few, Commander, said Medical Officer Reyes. Scattered. Mostly shelters or underground bunkers. Minimal life support. They won't survive long if the battle reaches ground level. Lyra gave a single nod. Across the bridge, Commander Rourke stepped forward. We should strike now. Don't give Threxel the time to make a mistake. Just remove him. No, Lyra said, firmly. We give him one last chance. Rourke frowned. He'll never take it. Then we'll show the galaxy that we did everything we could, Lyra said. When we strike, there will be no doubts. A new message was prepared and sent, short, clear, and final. This is your last warning. Surrender all ships immediately. Disarm and prepare to be boarded. Non-compliance will result in immediate action. You have 5 minutes. The message was transmitted on all open frequencies. Every Varnock ship received it. On the Varnock command ship, Dreadfong, High Warlord Threxelmar slammed his fist against the console. Sparks flew. He growled like a cornered beast. Who do they think they are? He roared. They speak like judges, like gods. But they're just another empire pretending to be saviors. An officer spoke hesitantly. Warlord, perhaps we should fall back. The Terrans are more advanced than we expected. Their formation is flawless. Threxel spun around, his eyes wild. Cowards. All of you. I will not run from humans. He leaned closer to the screen, narrowing his gaze at the image of the Terran fleet. Let them come, he said. We'll burn their ships to ash. He cut the transmission and barked a single order. Fire everything. The Varnock ships lit up the sky. Dozens of missiles launched at once. Plasma turrets fired massive bolts of energy. Swarms of automated attack drones rushed forward like angry hornets. The Dominion made its move, a wall of chaos and fire aimed straight at the heart of the Terran fleet. On board the Deliverance, no one flinched. Intercept, Lyra ordered calmly. The first wave of missiles was destroyed before it reached halfway. Hundreds of defense drones, sleek and silent, sliced through the incoming fire. Point defense lasers on the Terran cruisers pulsed with machine precision. The sky lit up in bursts of white light as each threat was vaporized in midair. The plasma blasts hit Terran shields and vanished without effect. The drones, fast and intelligent, weaved through debris and picked off Varnock units one by one. Nothing made it through. Not one hit. Inside the war room, Lyra turned toward her senior officers. They were watching the scene unfold with steady eyes. Tactical evaluation, she asked. Tactical Officer Lane answered without emotion. Enemy systems show no adaptation. They're relying on brute force. They think we're holding back. Commander Rourke stepped forward. They've made their choice. Lyra looked at him. They always were going to. She stepped to the center console and placed her palm on the activation pad. Authorized deployment of the Tachyon Array, she said. Everyone in the room paused. The Tachyon Array was a weapon unlike any other. Designed by Terran engineers, it wasn't built to destroy. It was built to end. It could shut down entire fleets, short-circuiting engines, weapons, and shields in seconds, without killing a single life form aboard. But it had never been used in real combat. Until now. Confirm authorization, said the AI system. Commander Lyra Voss, she replied. Alpha clearance. Engage on my mark. Rourke raised an eyebrow. You sure about this, Commander? Lyra nodded. We arrived late. But that doesn't mean we strike in anger. We strike with purpose. The countdown began. Across the fleet, Terran ships powered up their energy cores. Vibrations ran through the decks as the Tachyon arrays charged. A low hum filled the air. On the Varnock side, chaos continued. Drones exploded. Missiles failed. Their commanders shouted in confusion as nothing they fired had any effect. And then the hum stopped. Lyra gave the order. Fire. A pulse of energy invisible to the eye rippled through space. 10 seconds later, the Varnock fleet went dark. On every Varnock ship, lights flickered out. Engines shut down. Weapons froze in mid-rotation. Screens went black. The crew stared in shock as their ships stopped responding. Nothing worked, not communications, not guidance, not even doors. The Varnock Dominion had just lost its fleet without a single Terran bullet hitting metal. Back on the Deliverance, a report came through. Enemy systems fully disabled. No casualties detected. All targets neutralized. Lyra exhaled, but her face remained firm. Begin boarding operations, she ordered. Secure Threxel alive. He will face judgment. As the fleet moved to sweep up the powerless enemy, a quiet settled over the bridge. The battle was over. No screams. No drawn-out destruction. Just silence. The kind of silence only Terran justice could bring. The battlefield above Krydon, 7 had gone quiet. Not a single weapon fired. Not a single ship moved. The Varnock Dominion fleet, once loud and filled with rage, now floated helpless in orbit, drifting, dark, and disabled. Thousands of their ships had been shut down in exactly 10 seconds. The tachyon array had worked. On board the HTS Deliverance, Commander Lyra Voss stood at the center of the bridge, watching the silent stars. Her face was calm, but her eyes were focused. She knew this quiet wasn't peace. It was the moment between breath and judgment. Status, she asked. Lieutenant Core replied, all enemy ships are offline. Power cores inactive. Weapon systems frozen. Life support remains stable. No casualties detected. Commander Rourke stepped closer. They never saw it coming. No, Lyra said, they believed we wouldn't come at all. Terran boarding teams moved swiftly. Small shuttles left the Terran ships like a swarm of arrows, heading toward the disabled Varnock vessels. Each team was armed with non-lethal pulse rifles and full tactical armor. Their mission was simple: secure the ships, take prisoners, and find High Warlord Threxelmar. On board the Drefong, Varnock soldiers shouted in confusion. Emergency lights blinked, doors refused to open, and weapons would not fire. Even internal comms had gone dead. Threxel stormed down a darkened corridor, flanked by 2 guards. His voice echoed as he growled commands that no one could follow. Get us moving. Reactivate main power. We can't, one of the guards said. All systems are locked. The command core is frozen. It's like the ship doesn't exist anymore. Threxel slammed his fist into a control panel. Sparks flew. Nothing changed. They're not warriors, he hissed. They're machines wrapped in skin. The Terran boarding party breached the Dreadfang's main bay with no resistance. Their black armor gleamed under the red emergency lights. Commander Voss had given strict orders: no unnecessary force. Capture. Detain. Do not kill. The Varnock crew offered little resistance. Disarmed and confused, many surrendered without a word. Some cowered. Others simply sat, defeated. Threxel, however, did not give up. He was found in the command chamber, pacing like a wild animal. When the Terran soldiers entered, he turned and raised a blade made from the bones of a beast long extinct. You think this is over? He shouted. You think silence means victory? The lead Terran officer, Lieutenant Arden, stepped forward calmly. It means justice has arrived. Threxel lunged. The blade never reached Arden. A stun charge hit the warlord square in the chest, and he collapsed with a snarl. Threxelmar was captured, alive, just as Lyra had ordered. Back aboard the Deliverance, the report came through. Commander, Kerr said, we have him. Threxelmar is in custody. No casualties on our side. Lyra nodded slowly. She turned to Rourke. Prepare a secure cell. Maximum isolation. He's not to speak to anyone until the coalition arrives. Understood. Send the same message to all Varnock crews, she added. They will be treated fairly under galactic law. No revenge. No torture. We are not them. Rourke paused, then nodded. Yes, Commander. The rest of the day passed in silence. The skies above Krydon, 7 cleared. Fires still burned on the surface, but they no longer spread. Terran relief ships began landing medical personnel, engineers, support teams. The survivors, hidden for days, slowly emerged. Thalorian children peeked from shelters, blinking in the sunlight. Wounded soldiers were carried from underground hospitals. Elder scholars stepped into the open, their eyes full of grief and wonder. Lyra herself returned to the surface, this time not in armor, but in her standard uniform. She walked through the ruins of Valeriath, seeing it now not as a battlefield, but as a place that deserved rebuilding. She knelt beside a cracked mural and placed a hand on it. "We can't undo what happened," she said softly, "but we can make sure it never happens again." A young Thalorian girl approached, no older than 10. Her clothes were torn, her face smudged with ash. She looked up at Lyra with wide silver eyes. "Are you going to stop the others too?" she asked. Lyra smiled gently. "Yes. All of them." Back aboard the flagship, the bridge remained still as reports came in from every ship. "Fleet fully secured," Lieutenant Kerr said. "No hostile activity. All Varnock vessels under control. Coalition forces beginning planetary aid." "Any word from Earth?" Rourke asked. "High Command says one word," Kor replied. "Effective." Lyra didn't speak for a moment. Then she turned, walked to the center of the bridge, and sat in the command chair. She looked out at the stars beyond Krydon. 7. The Terran Armada stood still, a symbol of silence and strength. They had come late, but they had ended it in seconds. The war was over. Above Krydon. 7. The Terran Armada remained in silent formation. Their ships no longer glowed with weapon systems or defense shields. Now, they served as platforms for medical units, supply teams, and repair crews. The once deadly formation had become a lifeline. On the surface, ash still covered the ground. The air was heavy with the smell of melted stone and scorched earth. But within the ruins, life had begun to move again. Commander Lyra Voss walked through the remains of the capital city, Valeriath, surrounded by soldiers and medics. But no one marched in lines or held rifles at the ready. The war was not just finished, it was buried. And what rose in its place was something different. Lyra stopped beside a half-standing wall. Behind it, a group of Thalorian survivors gathered in silence. A young boy helped an old woman walk across the broken street. A medic patched up a child with a shattered arm. A coalition officer distributed food packs from a crate. The Thalorian High Scholar, one of the few remaining elders of the planet's leadership, approached Lyra slowly. His robes were torn, his eyes sunken with sorrow. Yet when he looked at her, he bowed his head, not in submission, but in respect. "You came," he said softly. "We were late," Lyra replied. "Far too late. And yet, you ended what none of us could stop," the elder said. He paused. "Some of us believed no help would ever come. We sent that message into the dark, and then we waited, hoping someone, somewhere, would care." Lyra said nothing. The silence was heavier than any words she could offer. The elder touched a cracked crystal statue nearby. Its once glowing base was shattered. "We built our world on peace, on trust, and it broke under the first touch of war." "Your world didn't break," Lyra said. "It was attacked, but it will rise again. That's why we're here now. Not just to stop the enemy, but to help you rebuild." The elder looked at her, then gave a slow, sad smile. "You are not what we expected. Terrans, your name brings fear across the stars. They say your silence means war. But I see now that your silence means purpose." Elsewhere on the planet, Commander Rourke oversaw prisoner transfers. Varnock soldiers, stripped of their weapons and armor, were escorted to containment areas. None resisted. None spoke. Even High Warlord Threxelmar, once a symbol of terror, now sat in a sealed holding chamber aboard the Deliverance, alone and powerless. He had not spoken a word since his capture. His eyes burned with rage, but his voice was silent. Rourke entered the observation room and stood beside the glass. "He'll face a full tribunal," he said. "Coalition judges. Open trial. Evidence recorded." Lyra joined him and watched Threxel through the glass. "Good," she said. "Let the galaxy see the truth." "You really believe in justice that much?" Rourke asked. Lyra didn't answer immediately. Then she said, "If we don't, then what's the point of all this? All our strength, all our silence. What good is it if we become like him?" Rourke nodded slowly. Later that day, a coalition representative, Admiral Kether of the Siraxi species, arrived on the Deliverance. He was tall and scaled, his voice deep and slow. "You Terrans did in 10 seconds what our fleets couldn't do in 10 days, he said as he met with Lyra in the command hall. "We didn't come to prove strength," Lyra replied. "We came because no one else could stop him." "You didn't just stop him," Kether said. "You redefined the battlefield." There was a pause. Then he added, "And you've reminded the galaxy of something we tried to forget, that when humanity moves, the stars listen." That evening, Lyra returned to her quarters. The room was simple. A desk, a screen, a few reports waiting for review. She sat quietly, letting the silence settle. She opened a message sent from Earth High Command. It was short, marked with official clearance. A single sentence glowed across the screen. "Mission result, accepted. Outcome, decisive. Status, commended. There was no thanks. No praise. Just cold efficiency. She closed the message and looked at the second one, a report labeled Projected Risks of Terran Power Expansion. She stared at it. Then, without opening it, she pressed delete. Down on Krydon, 7 children played near a broken fountain, laughing for the first time in weeks. Coalition engineers restored power lines. Thalorian scholars drew new maps, this time with Terran banners marked not in fear, but in gratitude. The stars above the planet were clear again. And in those stars, the Terran fleet held position. Still watching. Still silent. But the galaxy now knew they would not always stay silent. Commander Lyra Voss stood one last time on the edge of the landing platform, looking up at the sky. We can't fix the past, she said, but we can choose what comes next. And this time, the galaxy would not be left waiting. The stars above Krydon, 7 shimmered in peace. For the first time in weeks, the planet was quiet. No more fires in the sky. No more screams echoing across the ruins. The Terran Armada remained in orbit, now serving as guardians instead of warriors. The silence they brought was no longer a warning, it was a shield. Inside the HTS Deliverance, Commander Lyra Voss stood alone on the main observation deck. The wide glass wall in front of her showed the planet's surface far below. Relief stations lit up the darkened landscape. Coalition medships flew between zones of survivors. Drones buzzed overhead, delivering supplies and scanning for buried life. A soft chime echoed from the communication console behind her. Lieutenant Kor entered quietly. "Commander," he said, "the broadcast channel is open. The fleet is ready." Lyra turned, her expression calm and serious. "Has the message been reviewed?" "Yes, Commander. Cleared by Earth High Command. Coalition leadership has agreed to relay it across all major systems." Lyra nodded. "Send it." Kor pressed a single key. Across the galaxy, from the crowded trade hubs of Tau Sintra to the quiet farming moons of Hesari, every comm screen flickered. Every station, every port, every planet with a link to galactic networks received the same transmission. Commander Lyra Voss appeared on the screen, standing tall in her uniform, the Terran insignia glowing softly on her shoulder. Her voice was clear, firm, and without emotion. "This is Commander Lyra Voss of the Terran Armed Fleet. To all peoples, governments, and systems, hear these words. We came to Krydon, 7 too late. We did not stop the slaughter in time. But when we arrived, we ended the war in seconds. To those who seek peace, we will stand with you. To those who seek war, we will arrive. We may come without warning. We may be late. But when we come to end it. Let this be a warning. Let this be a promise. The silence of Earth is not absence. It is preparation." The screen faded to black. The Terran symbol remained for 5 long seconds, then vanished. In the days that followed, the galaxy reacted. On Krydon, 7, the surviving Thalorians held a ceremony at the ruins of their Hall of Wisdom. Cracked stones were laid in a ring. Terran engineers helped build a new beacon, a monument not of victory, but of survival. In the crowded chambers of the Coalition Senate, heated debates erupted. Some feared Terran overreach. Others called for new alliances. A few warned that Earth's silence could one day turn into dominance. But no one denied the truth. Humanity had saved a world, and they had done it without firing a single kill shot. In dark corners of the galaxy, warlords and pirate kings watched the footage of the Tachyon array in fear. Some began to move their operations deeper underground. Others fled their strongholds entirely, hoping to avoid the quiet shadow of Terran ships. And on Earth, public opinion split. News anchors praised the precision of the fleet, calling it a return of Earth's legacy. Critics argued that absolute power, even when used for good, was dangerous. Inside Terran Command, the council chambers were filled with silence. The operation had been a success, but it had also awakened something. A new era. A new understanding. Back aboard the Deliverance, Commander Lyra Voss read the final summary report. The numbers were brutal: 4.3 billion dead, cities lost forever, cultures damaged beyond repair. And yet, billions more had been saved. She sat quietly in her quarters, lights dim, the soft hum of the ship surrounding her. A new message arrived in her inbox. Senate Inquiry, Terran Intervention Protocols Review. Subject, Potential Risks of Rapid Response Authority. She didn't open it. She stared at it for a moment, then deleted it without a word. Later, she stood once more on the surface of Krydon, 7, wearing no armor, no weapons. Just a simple uniform and the weight of memory. Around her, children played among the repaired stone gardens. Coalition soldiers helped plant new life in Thalorian soil. A young Thalorian girl handed her a crystal flower and whispered, "Thank you for coming." Lyra knelt beside her and placed a hand on the child's shoulder. "I'm sorry we came too late," she said. The girl looked up. "You came when no one else did." That night, Lyra stood beneath the stars with her officers. Rourke asked her, "Do you think they'll ever trust us again?" "After seeing what we can do," Lyra answered, "some will fear us. Others will call for limits. But trust doesn't come from silence, it comes from choice. What we choose next will matter more than anything we've done." He nodded. "So what do we choose?" Lyra looked up at the sky. "We choose to be present, not just in battle, but in peace. We won't wait for screams to reach us again." Above them, the Terran fleet turned slowly, preparing to leave orbit. Their mission was done, but their duty would never be over. Earth had spoken. The galaxy had listened. And now, the stars watched with new eyes.